Hello and welcome to another episode of the In News series. I am Pooja and today we are going to analyze step by step the very important act which has gained momentum since the past few weeks, and that is the Places of Worship Act of 1991. What is this act? Why, despite of the provision in the act that the places of worship which are stable as on 15th of August 1947 are still needing a change according to some plaintiffs. So we will discuss everything. Stay engaged, and I would like to tell you that from the perspective of preliminary exams, the provisions are very important as well as the conceptual clarity. Plus from the perspective of mains examination, GS mains paper 2 and 1, both you need to be concerned with over here. Now, as we see, this particular piece of news is from the Indian Express. Places of Worship Act scales tilt in favor of claimant seeking change. Now, this is at the backdrop of the Shahi Idgah at Mathura and of course the Gyanvapi mosque. What is the entire issue about Gyanvapi? We have already discussed that, so we won't be doing that. We will entirely focus upon the Places of Worship Act because conceptual clarity is important even if you're preparing for UPSC or any other examination in which law is concerned. Moving ahead, let's talk about the Places of Worship Act of 1991. This, according to the short title in the act itself, says that it is an act to prohibit conversion of any place of worship and also to provide for the maintenance of the religious character of places of worship as it existed on the day 15th day of August 1947, the date on which of course we achieved independence. So according to this act, as we can see that India became a democracy and a constitutional democracy, that too after 15th of August 1947. Before that, India was a nation in the making and it was rife with history in which whenever one section over the other wanted to have a domination, they were ensuring that symbolically they demolish the religious symbol such as temple or any other infrastructure for the previous ruling class and building their own symbolisms. So this was of course known to the constitution makers, not constitution makers, but parliamentarians. Constitution makers did not have the idea that this kind of thing could rise in future. So the provisions, as we discuss, remember that the provisions of section 3, 6 and 8 shall come into force at once, and actually the date on which the enactment is back then when it was enacted, these three sections came into force at once, but the remaining ones were to be coming into force from 11th day of July 1991. Section 2 has the date of the cutoff date basically from which the enactment would be done. Here, according to section 2, conversion includes alteration or change of whatever nature. Places of worship include not only temple and mosque but also gurudwara, church or monastery, or any other place of public religious worship or any religious denomination or any section thereof, okay, by whatever name called. So remember that it does not just deal with the mosques or temples but any other place of worship. So it is non-ambiguous. Section 3 basically bars the conversion of places of worship which had to become into force at once. Section 4 declares that the religious character of a place of worship shall continue to be the same as of August 15, 1947. And this section is the most contentious provision because it says that no new suit can be filed into the court. That means it bars the jurisdiction of the courts, right? Judicial review. Judicial review forms one of the basic structure of the constitution. So this is one of the provisions you have to remember. There are certain exemptions that have been made. According to section 5, it was said that the act shall not apply to Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid case and to any suit, appeal or proceeding relating to it. So that means why this particular case was given an exemption, while for the other cases it is saying that no new suit can be filed. So this is a blanket ban, and this is also one of the reasons that this particular act is being challenged. Moving ahead, any place of worship. Other than that, we also have other exemptions as well. So the act also exempts any place of worship that is an ancient and historical monument or an archaeological site, or is covered by the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Act sites remain of 1958. A suit that has already been settled and disposed of, a case which has already been disposed of, will be exempted according to this act. And any dispute that has already been settled by the parties will also be exempted, or conversion of any place that took place before acquiescence before the act commenced. That means, in simple language, if two parties have resolved a case with respect to a case of any such nature, that will remain exempted. Other than that, before the act came into force, if the change has already occurred with respect to the places of worship, then that will also be exempted. Moving ahead, now let's talk about other provisions. Section 6 talks about the punishment for the contravention of Section 3, in which it says whoever contravenes the provision of Section 3 will be imprisoned for a term which may extend up to 3 years. Okay, remember this. This could be asked in prelims, and shall also be liable to fine. Moving ahead, now why was it enacted? Now back then when it was enacted, the Ram Janmabhoomi case was at its peak, and the Babri Masjid still stood. But after the communal tensions rose, the rattled parliamentarians under the leadership of Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao enacted an act. Now, the Home Minister back then, S.B. Chavan, he said that it was necessary to move this act because keeping in view of the controversies which are arising from time to time. That means it was very recurring in nature. So that is why this act was enacted, so that communal tensions could be pacified with regard to the conversion of places of worship which continue to vitiate the communal atmosphere. Moving ahead, now of course the intentions were very clear that communal tensions needed to be pacified, because India as a diverse country, we have had many rulers since the beginning, but the intentions were clear that it doesn't matter that which ruler built what on the religious symbol of any other religious denomination, but it is important that we should not let our past dictate our present and future. That is what the Supreme Court has also said. The intentions, as we see, it was based on the principle of equal entitlement of persons belonging to any religious denomination or section, because it said that not only the temples but mosques can't be changed, churches can't be changed, and gurudwaras or any other public worship place should not be changed. So equal entitlement to all was given. The act enforces non-retrogression. That means we do not have to look at the past but the present. We cannot change everything that has been done in the past, validate our sentiments of today. So non-retrogression was also one of the points. And the prevention of such mischief is essential to maintain a peaceful and stable society, so that if just suppose every other place is converted to as it was before, now tensions would arise. So a proper act should have been in place where it is dictated that let's not look at the past but the present. So this was the intention. Other than that, we have to understand that this is a war of civilization. Since the beginning of time, civilizational wars were of course fought with swords and arrows, but there was also a tendency to put ideological hegemony over the other part. See, if there are two people, A and B, in the past they are fighting wars. A has won against B. As a symbolic gesture of its ideological and of course the cavalry hegemony, A might tend to destroy whatever symbol of expression B has established. In here we see destruction of a Jewish temple in Jerusalem by the Neo-Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II in 587 BC. This occurred in order to show that we are superior to you. Our symbols of expression are superior to yours, and this was a result of the defeat. Roman installation of the temple of Jupiter in place of the second temple on Temple Mount in 70 CE. Another part of history. Moving ahead, not only that, but in India also, we find certain examples, like in the early 10th century, the Rashtrakuta king Indra III destroyed the temple of Kalapriya, which was patronized by his arch enemy, the Pratiharas. So, whenever we go back to the past, we will have to change the entire history according to this act. This is what it is saying, that I am giving you such examples to ensure that whenever you write your mains examination, you are not biased towards any party. So do understand this is a war of civilization, and whenever one group wants to establish a hegemony on the other group, they will always attack the symbols of expression. And religion in India is such a huge part of our culture, right? Criticisms, of course, there are criticisms for which the Supreme Court will also review the act, and it is welcomed by many people. It is saying that arbitrary, irrational, retrospective cutoff date has been put. On what basis 11th July 1991 has been put into place? This is contentious. Secondly, as I told you, one provision of the Act says, Section 4 says that no new suits can be pursued in the judiciary. Why not? Why just put a blanket ban? This is what the criticism is of the Act, that blanket ban. It's like, just suppose with an example, it's like a robber has looted you, 5 things have been looted by you, and you can claim only one thing. And this is not just against the one group against the other, but every other group. This is what the critics are saying. Understand, these are not my point of views, these are not my personal point of views, this is what the critics are saying. So, blanket ban has been put. It infringes, according to the critics, it infringes upon the right to equality. That, okay, only certain section of people have the right to pursue a court, but others cannot. And why only Ram Janmabhoomi case could have been pursued and other suits cannot? It forbids, it actually infringes upon Article 15 as well, because it discriminates against certain section of people. 21, right to protection of life and personal liberty as well, of which, of course, if I have a religion, then I have the right to live my life according to my religious dictates, and that is an integral part of right to life. Freedom of religion, Article 25 and 26, freedom to manage religious affairs. If my religious denomination built a temple or a mosque or anything over there, but now another person has developed any other structure which is not coinciding with my religious belief, my sentiments will get hurt. My right to freedom of religion will also get hurt. 29, protection of minority interests. Now it says not only the mosques need to be under the ambit of the Act, but Jains, Sikhs, Christians, all the establishments of these denominations will also come into the picture. Now, if some Sikh or Jain want to restore their place of worship as it was in the past, they cannot go to the courts. So that is also a problem, that it is against the right to the minority interest. And basically, it is violating the principles of secular society. So this is what the critics are saying. Now, because this is such a controversial issue, I need to ensure that whatever information is reaching to you guys, it is completely neutral. You have to see the pros, the cons, both the sides of the coin, so that an opinion could be made. Here, we are not going to form opinion because I'm just giving you the information. Whatever opinion you are going to make, that will be an informed opinion. Okay. And other than that, let's see the stand of the judiciary. Now in Acharya Maharaj Shri Narendra Prasad Ji Anand Prasad Maharaj versus State of Gujarat case of 1974. It was said by the Supreme Court, a constitutional bench was made. No rights in an organized society can be absolute. the majority cannot claim the right over a minority, as they are saying that this is absolute. Enjoyment of one's rights must be consistent with the enjoyment of the rights also by others. Very simple. Like in the fundamental rights part, we all know that fundamental rights are not sacrosanct. So they can be abridged or taken away without altering the basic structure of the constitution. So restrictions are there, they are not absolute. Similarly, now because of this particular case, we can see that yes, one's right over the other cannot be imposed. It should be right for all and not absolute in nature. The M. Siddiqui D and others versus Mahant Suresh Das and others of 2019 case, which is popularly known as the Ayodhya judgment, in which of course whatever judgment had been settled. But there were also certain pointers that the Supreme Court made. Historical wrongs cannot be remedied by the people taking laws into their hands. In preserving the character of places of public worship, Parliament has mandated in no certain terms that history and its wrongs shall not be used as an instruments to oppress the present and the future. This is the language of the Supreme Court. Supreme Court always talks like that only. But let me tell you, what does it want to say? It simply wants to say whatever historical instances have happened, they should not be used against certain groups. And the historical wrongs or injustice, as they allege, whatever has been done, cannot dictate our present and the future. They cannot overshadow the good present that we have and the better future that we may have. So that is what it is saying. If we continue to look back, we will never move forward. This is what the Supreme Court has said. Now, as we see the question, answer this in your mains answer sheet. So, the Places of Worship Act of 1991 infringes upon Article 14, critically analyze. You have to be critical here, okay? So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Stay updated.